A bill that was taken up last night, the legalization of cannabis, that was passed through the Senate by a slim margin of 19 to 17. This document was negotiated solely among the governor's office and Democrats. It was released to Republicans on Saturday night, and when we looked at the provisions, we realized that Section 174 was written in such a way that it would inure to the benefit of a private individual, giving them the right to cultivate marijuana and circumvent the entire permitting process in the state of Connecticut. You know, Republicans have called for this building to be opened up for many, many months. We are now, most of our adults are getting vaccinated. We have society back to normal, masks are lifted, and yet for some strange reason, Democrats continue to want to operate in private, without the light of day. And sadly, this 300-page document that was put on us shined a light on this very troubling piece of legislation. And when the light was shined, the cockroaches scurried. When this debate on marijuana had begun, people know my position on the drug from a public health perspective, and it was always said that it shouldn't be about money, that we would talk about the societal impacts of that drug. And sadly, that's all it's become now, is about money and greed. It is so tarnished that the House of Representatives should not be taking up this bill, and frankly, there should be an investigation in the governor's office and in the Democrats' offices on how this provision came to be. I think we need to also have a conversation about requiring our state agencies to comply with FOI requests within 30 days. I think every single newspaper has written about the fact that this government and this governor has not complied with Freedom of Information requests. And in light of what has happened with this piece of legislation dealing with marijuana, it is important that we get to see those documents, those negotiations, and what actually went on behind closed doors. If this bill is taken up, I think we need to have a conversation, and a provision needs to be added that no state employee and no public official can enter into the business of cultivating marijuana within 5 years after leaving state service or public office, because it's all about the process. We have a two-party system in the state of Connecticut for a reason. We serve as checks and balances on each other. And the fact that we have a single party that went into a room and tried to create a bill that would provide financial benefit to one individual in the state of Connecticut is simply outrageous. It never should have entered into the document. The governor's office should not have agreed to that provision. And the fact that it was even written and filed on the system and almost passed into law tarnishes the entire bill, and it's reprehensible. There has always been Republicans that have supported the notion of homegrown, of people being able to smoke marijuana. And that is the debate that I think that we could have on the floor. Where the rift came into play was who was going to be able to profit off that money, and I think that's where Republicans had some concerns. I think that given the magnitude of money that we are dealing with, we have always been concerned that greed is driving the bus on this issue. Given the amount of money and what we've seen in other states and even on the federal level, I don't think politicians who are voting on this legislation should later leave public office and profit off of it. So I would suggest that even state officials and public officials be prohibited from engaging in this process.
That good old legislators? I'm
Yes.
trying to understand.
And I think the reality is what we're looking at right now is we have the budget to do, we have a bond bill to do, we have 2 additional controversial bills that we're taking up today, and we have the budget implementer. And we're going on about roughly 36 hours left in session. To take up marijuana now, I think in the House, would be a minimum of a 12-hour debate. But I do think that we are owed a conversation, and we should be sitting down trying to improve this bill and make it even legal right now, because the way it's drafted, I believe the labor provisions violate federal law. And so we are just going to walk right into a lawsuit if this is passed into law. We are in the minority, obviously, but we have a right to speak on how we feel to get our message out. And so bills of these magnitudes require that kind of debate. And I am not going to ask my members to have a bill that was drafted in secret thrown on our plates on a Saturday night before the end of session to tell them to stand down and you're not allowed to speak your voice on behalf of your constituents. It's not the way democracy should be working. But the reality is, too, I mean, this bill has stalled out over the months of session because Democrats don't support this bill. We had the vote last night, 19-17. I think that was 6 Democrats voted along with Republicans to try to defeat the bill. So it speaks volumes to the problems that this piece of legislation has. And if the governor is interested in bipartisan conversation, then I would hope that he would agree that we should take this issue up in the summertime when Republicans can get in the room and have a conversation.
You talked to the speaker this morning. He intimated that the governor really wants cannabis and could call you into a special session.
And that's the governor's right to do. But, you know, the fact that that provision got in that bill to allow for one individual to profit off the state of Connecticut, I have to ask the governor, at what cost are you willing to legalize marijuana? And it is disturbing that he would agree to that type of provision so that he could wave the flag and say, I legalize pot. In the meantime, we created an unprecedented piece of legislation where somebody in the state of Connecticut is going to get rich. Those type of politics in this building have no place, and we are standing here in firm opposition.